Hi guys, I'm Mike Edgar from TheLureBox, and I'm here again with my regular boat partner James Dobie, back on Graph and Water. So earlier we had a quick discussion about vertical jigging for the Zander, and today now we're going to look at casting for the Zander. It's something that we see a lot of the Europeans do, even on Grapham, is casting, but not so many of the English guys. Today's like today, where it's flat calm, is when you see people typically casting. However, when the wind gets up, people only want a vertical jig. However, casting can be an extremely efficient way of catching a Zander, and we found that we catch more fish through casting than we do vertical, but vertical tends to pick up the bigger fish. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think looking at some of the stuff we use for vertical, we generally use bigger lures than we do for casting.
Yep.
And smaller lures, it doesn't always mean smaller fish, but smaller fish can eat a smaller lure much easier than they can eat a 6 or 8 inch lure. So
yeah,
we definitely pick up more fish, perch and Zander casting. Strangely enough, we don't get too many pike on the method.
Agreed. So rod wise, we've got some super sexy rods here. What rods are we using?
So this one, Westin W8 twitching 6'6", rated to 28 gram. This has got a 15 or 20 gram jig head on it at the moment. See, bend it around there. It's quite a stiff rod, plenty of power towards the butt. Lovely and light in the hands. This has got a 2,500 reel on it. See, balances very nicely just by the hook keeper. Really, really nice.
It's a rod you can use all day long and not notice it in your hand. Super light. It's a very accurate rod as well for casting. I'd say that is my #1 rod. If we just pull that rod back out a sec, James, we look at the leader material here. There's a lot to be said, a lot of debate between fluorocarbon and wire. The type of casting in the depth of water that we're casting in, you don't tend to pick up too many pike. However, in case we do pick up pike, this is a super heavy fluorocarbon leader. This is 60 pounds. We very, very rarely step below 60 pounds at any point. You can use wire or heavy fluorocarbon, especially on Grapham, as we don't pick up the pike. Braid again, YGK, G-Sol X8 is the best braid on the market. Again, for casting, you want the lure to drop fairly quickly. This chap cuts through the water nice and clean. Lures wise, again, let's have a look at your top 5 lures.
Top 5
what would
lures.
it be?
Right. #1, again talking about Westin, this one is the Hypo Teez. This is in 9cm in the colour smelt. That is #1 for me. Smelt, nice natural colour. I think that's rigged with a 16 or an 18 gram jig head on at the moment. It looks a bit silly with a big lump at the front of it, but it works. Folds nicely, get a hit from behind, bang. That is my favourite colour and probably my #1 soft plastic. Also use it in different colour. This one I think is called Bass Orange.
Yep.
Or Dirty Harbour, it's one of the two. Again, slightly translucent, back, a little bit orange, that's nice.
So these are both 9cm.
Both 9cm, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So what else?
Again, 9cm. This one is the Shad Teez. One is in headlight, and I think this one is called Wow Perch, or another strange name.
Lava perch.
Lava Perch, there we go. 16 gram, I think, on the front of it. These catch us hundreds of fish over the course of the season. They'll pick up everything. Pick up perch, pick up pike, pick up Zander. Also, earlier on, pick me up a 12-pound bream, fairly hooked in the mouth on one of those. So they are a slightly deeper body, much more of a roll than the Hypo Teez. They come through more like that, whereas the Hypo Teez comes through quite straight.
So just touching back onto the jig heads, as a rule of thumb, if you allowed 7 grams of lead or 7 grams of weight per 10 foot, you're going to be thereabouts.
There or thereabouts. Depends obviously on the wind, depends if you're anchored or drifting. On here, 21 gram casting,
yeah,
which I've got on this lure. 21 gram is the maximum really that I use, because otherwise the lure, when you're bringing it up, it's just going straight down. There's very, very little pause. Most of the hits come on the pause. If you're using too heavy, just drop straight down again. you're missing out on really the best part of the action with a big head.
You'll see from both of our lures, we tend to use a lot of stand-up jig heads. The reason for this, with a round lure, what we don't want to happen is when that lure touches down, the lure just fold and lay on the bottom, whereas a stand-up jig head will stand up with the tail clear, ready for the predator to come in and nail the lure. So I think what we'll do now is just show them some of a quick demonstration of actually how we fish the casting rigs.
Yeah.
So a little bit of casting retrieving, and maybe we'll pick up a fish or two.
That'd be nice.
So guys, we're in approximately 30 foot of water. Jig head wise, I've got a 20 gram stand-up jig head, and I'm just going to show you the basic technique we use for cast and retrieve here on Grapham. You can mix it up in several variations of what I'm going to show you, but there's a couple of key points here which you need to pay attention to, because this is where you're going to get the hits. So 30 foot of water approximately, 20 gram jig head, cast out, let the lure hit the water, and on a slack line. I know that it's going to take about 8 seconds for that lure to hit the bottom, and just before it does, I clamp up the line so the lure falls at the last minute on a tight line in case we get a hit on the drop. Once the lure's on the bottom, you'll see the line, a belly in the line, so the line will now go slack. We typically use 2 to 3 quick turns of the handle. So once the line's slack, 3 quick turns, 1, 2, 3. Keep a tight line and allow the lure to drop back down through the water column. You can see that the lure has hit the bottom. 1, you felt it through the rod blank, and 2, the bow in the line is back. Allow the lure to sit dead still on the bottom for approximately 2 seconds before you start the retrieve again. So 3 turns the handle, watch the rod tip, watch the bow in the line, touchdown. So as we're bringing it back in, the lure's stepping closer, so you need to lower the turn of the handle, and eventually the lure will be directly below the boat and you can turn it into a vertical jigging. Never take the lure out of the water too quickly. Quite often the fish will follow the lure right back to the boat and you catch them vertical jigging at the boat side. 3 turns of the handle, stop, 2 second pulls is generally where you're going to get the hits.